bake some bread. All right, so if you've watched my channel before, you know that I teach sourdough baking and I teach regular artisan yeast baking and all things in between. So today I've got a nice loaf of sourdough that has been chilling out in the fridge for 2 days. So mixed it, let it rise, do my stretch and folds, let it rise some more, and then form it and parked it in the fridge for 2 days. So that's where we're at right now. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, you saw that I baked a loaf that was completely frozen and into beautifulness, okay? So today we're just gonna go with a nice cold loaf. The first thing we're gonna do is pop it out onto this prepared baking sheet. So the way I do that, I just gently flip it over and pull the paper off. All right, notice that the pan is upside down. That happens for a reason. I want it to be upside down so that I can go ahead and score it and then cover it with a bowl. My round bowls, sometimes I put them in a Dutch oven. I usually use a cast iron Dutch oven, but the ones that are not, the ones that are petards, they just don't fit like that. So I'm just gonna give it a nice little dusting of flour and we'll get our blade and we'll go ahead and score this. And I think I'm gonna do a kind of an S, a backwards S. There we go. And maybe we'll give it a little bit of a decoration. A little stalk down here, and maybe on this side, just kind of a 3 little stalk thing. There we go. And then we're gonna cover that up with a bowl. Holler at me if you have any questions. There we go. We'll just give that a little cover. And what that's going to do is really help that bread bake inside and give it a little bit of steam. Because bread loves to have a little bit of moisture and a little bit of steam. So as the bread gives off some moisture, it gets that steam and it keeps it baking really well. So we're going to go ahead and put that into a 450-degree oven for 20 minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to make our bread with inclusions. So let's set our timer. 20 minutes, start. Okay, good. All right, so I have another dough that's ready. So this one is also a sourdough. I made it last night. I did my stretch and fold and I left it on the counter overnight. So you can see it's nice and puffy. And this one's not gonna have a cold proofing. It's just gonna go straight into the oven. So we're gonna dust our surface a little bit here. Actually, before we do that, we are going to talk about what we're going to include in our breads. Okay, so we're going to do some pepperoni and some Parmesan Reggiano because it's super yummy. See if we can get this open first. You know me, I just keep it real. All right. So sometimes things work and sometimes they don't work. And that's kind of the fun of it. Because you never know when you're doing it live if it's going to be like chaotic or if it's going to be all smooth. I'm going to take a stack of pepperoni about that big. All right? And you can see this dough has got some beautiful bubbles happening right here. I love that. Okay, we're just going to slice it one way. And then we're going to come back and chunk it up. Because I really hate when you have pepperoni bread and you get like these giant chunks of pepperoni. I would rather have small little chunks so that it's just a bite. All right, so we're just gonna go ahead and chop that up. Oops, some coming off the board. All right, that's what we're looking for, okay? So just little chunks of pepperoni. And I've already pre-grated my Parmesan cheese. Listen, take the time to grate it yourself so you don't get all that junk that goes on in the package one, because you don't want all that excess, all right? We're gonna take the time to make something from scratch, make sure it's worthy. Okay, I'm gonna pop this down just a little bit so you can see better. We're gonna flip this dough out, and it's so nicely developed, it should come out really easily. It's super puffy and it's soft, it's just gorgeous. All right, here we go. It's a nice soft dough. I'm just gonna stretch it wide. We're gonna make it nice and thin because we're gonna include all this good stuff in it and we wanna make room for it all. So you're gonna make a nice big rectangle and try to make it as even as you can, right? We don't want one part that's thick and one part that's thin because it's not really gonna do it for us. Okay, so I usually start with the pepperoni. So we're just gonna come in here and just sprinkle our pepperonis We may actually need more than what I chopped up, so we'll just do some more if we do. We're gonna come over here with our Parmesan cheese. And I like to add some pepper. It just gives it like that, what is that flavor? All right, then we're gonna fold this, give it one single fold, and then press it down. And we're gonna come back with that pepperoni. And it doesn't have to be a ton, okay? You're just looking for flavor. All right, and more cheese. And we're gonna flip it over. So we're rolling it up, rolling it up. Each layer has some pepperoni and some cheese. Press it in. That'll keep it from popping out. And more cheese. And I definitely underestimated how much pepperoni we're gonna need, so we're gonna need some more. Just press it down. We'll grab some more pepperoni. No big deal. Another little stack. Whoops, this is magnetized, so it got stuck on there. All right, so in a second, I'll check and see if we have any comments or questions. And I don't have my glasses on, so it might be a little bit hard. Let's see. What am I making? Okay, so first I put in a sourdough loaf, and now I'm making a pepperoni and cheese bread. So let's go ahead and put this pepperoni on the top of this one. This will be our last layer. And this is so delicious. It's so good. All right, and then we're gonna put our cheese, because you know, you can never have too much cheese. And then we're gonna roll it in on itself. Okay, so we're just gonna pull back. Hello everyone, happy Saturday. And we're gonna go ahead and put this in here. Now that I've got all of that included in there, what do I do? Well, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna grab a pan. Which I should have grabbed before, but I didn't. So now I have my pan. I'm gonna grab some parchment paper. Now this works best if you have a serrated knife. So let's see if we can find one. Got me a serrated knife. We're gonna start in the center, and we're just gonna press down. Actually, I'm gonna switch to a bench knife. That would be better. All right, this is the bench knife. Right here, we're gonna cut it. And so just like you would do for cinnamon rolls, we're gonna cut these in rolls. So they're pepperoni cheese rolls. And once you cut it, you're gonna press it down. All right, so we're gonna cut. And you can just eyeball it. You should be about get 4 pieces or so per thing. And we're gonna press it down. And I like to butt them up against one another so they're stacked. Because what happens is they're gonna expand and they're gonna connect, and then you have those nice pillowy soft rolls. Okay, so we'll continue on here. Cut these into 4s. And I don't know about y'all, but I love to have that cheesy top. So we're gonna top it with the rest of that Parmesan cheese. And if you like pepperoni pizza, then I know you're gonna love this. All right, let's clean that up a bit. Let's get the rest of that cheese. So then we just top with a little more cheese. And we're gonna put these in a warm place and let them rise again. And what I'll do is I'll come back and I will share with you what they look like, because you don't wanna wait here for hours for that to happen. At least I don't think you do. All right, so we're gonna cover this and let that rest at room temperature. So I'm gonna take my rooster here. We're gonna cover that and let that rest and let that rise. It'll take about an hour or so for it to rise, and then I'll bake it at 400 degrees for 20 minutes covered, 20 minutes uncovered, until they're nice and golden brown and soft and gooey with cheese. Delicious. Okay, so we've got about halfway through our loaf that's in the oven. Let's talk about making some of that dough, all right? So I want to show you these different sours. So lots of people, when they're making sourdough bread, think that you can only bake bread with starter that looks like this. It's very bubbly and it's active and super, super. But sometimes our sourdough starter looks like this, where it's a day old and it's not quite as active. Both are perfectly fine to bake with. the thing is that you have to understand is that if you make it with a starter that's less active, it's going to take longer for that dough to develop because it's a slower rise. All the starter needs to be fed before it's active. So it'll start with the water and the flour that's in your dough, and it will activate the cheese, but it's going to be slower. This one is going to be a faster rise because it's more active. Now, I will say that once it's less active, it's a stronger sour flavor. So we have some choices. Do we want more sour or do we want less sour and more activated? Both are delicious. So I just want you to give some thought to that when you're developing your favorites, right? The more starter you use, the stronger, the faster it acted, and the less active it is, the more flavor you're gonna get. It's just gonna take a long time. It could take up to 24 hours. So you have to decide, like, where's your sweet spot? What do you like to do? So let me show you. Yesterday, I baked this loaf from frozen, and this is super convenient. If you know that you're gonna have company and you know you're not gonna have time to make bread, this was baked completely frozen, okay? So you can see it's got a nice crumb. It's not particularly like a wild crumb because it was a little bit thicker bread, but I like it because I'm gonna be serving sandwiches and I don't want all the holes for everything to fall through. So that is, that's a preference of mine. You could choose to have larger crumb, and that's totally cool. What that means is you're gonna need a more active starter, and you're gonna need more hydration, and it also has to do with the amount of fermentation that you have. So you're gonna let it bulk ferment a little bit longer, and that will help that. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If there are any questions, I don't see any for right now, so we're good. All right, let's go ahead and make some dough. Let me get a bowl and some water. When we make our dough, the thing is, our starter is like warm water. So if you want your dough to develop quicker, you're gonna use warmer water. I personally like a slow developed dough because I feel like it has a lot more flavor and it gives me a longer period of time to work with it. So we're gonna start out with 100 grams of starter. Now I do, if I'm using a starter that's not quite as active, I do use more starter. There we go, there's 100 grams. And then I'm gonna use 350 grams of water. Sometimes I use 300, it depends on what my goal is. Keep going, keep going. All right, perfect. Okay, and then I'm gonna use 500 grams of flour. Today I'm using Caputo flour. Caputo flour is from Italy. It's a wonderful, clean flour that doesn't have all the chemicals that we have in our flour here. So check it out. It's a little more expensive. You can find it on Amazon. It's a little more expensive, but it's definitely worth the extra money. Okay, so we're gonna go 500 grams. Oops, went a little over. So if you go over, you just take a little out. No harm, no foul. And then I particularly like a decent amount of salt in my bread. So you can use a range. You can do 10 grams, you can do 15 grams, somewhere in that range. And I'm using a kosher salt. Go. All right, so there we go. And I'm gonna get a glove to mix this since we're on camera and I need to change things. So we'll go with a one-handed mix to make life easy. All right. Hello, hello, my friends. Okay, so we've got our glove on and we're just gonna start circling it around. Right, all we're trying to do is moisten that starter and moisten the flour. All right, so once everything is nice and moistened and there's no dry bits of flour anywhere, we are good. So there's no kneading at this point, we're just mixing. And that's the wonderful part about the sourdough, is it really, people think it's so fussy, but honest to God, it takes less work than most of the yeast doughs. All right, So that's it. That's all we had to do. Look, it's nice and shaggy, and in 15 minutes we'll fold it and it will be beautiful. All right, let's take that glove off. We're gonna find a cover for this. I don't know if you can tell, but I 100% love baking. I owned a bakery for about 20 years and I enjoyed it every day. It was a crazy, passionate love. You have to love it if you're gonna do it as a business, because it's just a whole lot of freaking work. I mean, I was up at 2 a.m. every morning getting everything ready. All right. While we're waiting that extra 6 minutes for our bread to be uncovered, because I want to show it to you, I'm going to show you some fun things I've got. Okay, so my son is a great graphic artist, so he did this fun little sourdough. It says, "Ain't loafing around." And I'll show you some of the t-shirts while we're waiting. So there's a t-shirt that looks like that says "Ain't loafing around." That one. Isn't that cute? That's in my Shopify store. And then there's one that says "Start your day sour" with a little sourdough starter. Because, you know, that's how I start every day. And let's see. I think that's it. So the other ones just come in different colors. There's a whole bunch of them. There's a breadwinner one, and there's one that says "It's a great day to bake," because, you know, that's how I feel. What am I making? Okay, well, what I've made so far, in the oven I have a sourdough loaf that's baking. It's a batard. And then we also did these beautiful pepperoni rolls, pepperoni and Parmesan rolls with a little peppercorn. And then we made some dough so that we can keep the process rolling. So I always have dough in process, dough in the refrigerator, frozen loaves. So there's always some bread in process because I teach. And when I teach, the class is on Skool, and it's a 14-day class. So we start with making our own starters. I do provide everybody with a starter, but we also have to learn how we feed our starters so that it's active, and then we go ahead and do our breads. We start with focaccia because that's the easiest one. It's in a pan, it's flat, you don't have to have a lot of rise, so for a young starter, that's a great place to start. And then we move on. There's two regular sourdough loaves. So one with a super active starter and one with not as active starter. And then we go on from there. We go to a little more complicated breads like rye and pumpernickel and breads with inclusions and sweetbreads. So there's a whole range of different breads. So it's technically a 14-day class because there's 14 different breads, but it's a self-paced class, and I'm in there live all the time helping everybody. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the comments, and I would love to have you join me. There's also individual classes. So like there's a class that's just marble rye. So it's really a 2-day class. It's making the dough, retarding the dough, baking the dough, and that. So lots of options for those bread baking lovers. And I would love to have you join me. I have to get my caffeine in, hold on. All right, it's time to take a look at our dough. So we're gonna uncover it. I'm gonna move us over here towards the oven. And like I said, we bake it 20 minutes covered and 20 minutes uncovered. All right, so it's been just about 20 minutes. I'm gonna move that fold. This is the tricky part. All right, so you can see that it's really expanded. I'm gonna bring it in close. We're gonna make a move over here. Whoa. All right, so you can see that it's really expanded from what we started with, right? And that is a great sign. So now I'm gonna throw some ice in there. I'm gonna throw some ice in there so that we can get some more expansion. And here's the thing, home ovens tend to drop temperature. So we're gonna throw the ice in. We're gonna come up and we're gonna hit bake 450 again. And I want you to watch this, because this is a very typical thing in a home oven. Now, when I was in the bakery, our ovens had temperature control. But you see, it says its temperature right now is 335. So we need that to bump back up to 450 to get that nice dark crust that we're looking for. So you'll notice on the loaf that I showed you from before, from yesterday, the crust is nice and dark, right? But it's also not terribly hard. It's got that nice chew. And when it first comes out, it's very crunchy. But it's got that nice chew, and that's what we're looking for. All right, well, we're not gonna wait the 20 minutes for the rest of that bread to bake, and I will come back and I will show you in a follow-up video what the bread looks like and what the rolls look like, okay? So come back and join me, check in quick, and just let me know if you make these or if you do it, what you think, if you have questions, all that good stuff, because I truly love to engage with everybody. All right, my loves, have a blessed day, and I will see you later. Mwah! Ah, bread that's pretty sweet. Well, this one's all savory. But my friends, have a great one. I love you. Bye.